The reality is President Trump's first tax bill lowered taxes for the vast majority of Americans, roughly 2/3 of American households. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent joined Larry Kudlow yesterday with a simple message on the issue: make these tax cuts permanent.
If we do not get this tax bill done, as I said in my Senate hearings, this is pass-fail for our side of the aisle. And we will have the largest tax hike in history, and that will be on the people on our side who do not try to move this forward.
For more, let's bring in Fox News contributor Liz Peek. Liz, this is not just a want to have. This is not one of those bills that they can think about possibly doing. This is a must do if we want economic growth.
Yeah, and by the way, I think it should be pass-fail for both sides of the aisle. This is a preposterous thing that we're going to ladle onto this economy, a $3 billion tax hike. One of the most astonishing things during the campaign was that Kamala Harris ran on letting these tax cuts expire.
Yeah.
Today, to your point earlier, everybody got a tax cut in this tax bill. You got a doubling of the child tax credit and all kinds of things that were beneficial to almost everybody in the country. So yes, did the wealthy get more of a cut? Of course, they pay more of the taxes. So if you cut taxes, by definition, the wealthy are going to get more benefit. This is really foolish, and I have to say it brings home the urgency of Republicans figuring this out. They have got to stop squabbling between the Senate and the House and figure out how they're going to get this done. Nothing could be more important.
Well, and they're squabbling over, it seems to be less squabbling over in the House. But after today, it seems like they're coming together. They spent hour upon hour at the White House, the House leadership, but they can't even get it together because you've got these jacklegs from these blue states who are Republicans, who are demanding the state and local tax deduction go up excessively. And I say that living in a high tax state, but I digress. I'm just focused on Nancy Pelosi. She's gotten redone and made her debut because Chuck Schumer is stinking up the joint, and she thinks that there's like an N there somewhere.
Yes, that's true. I mean, I have to say, the Democrats are floundering on so many fronts, including lack of leadership. So it is not totally surprising to see Nancy Pelosi pop up again, to use your words. But seriously, don't they have someone better who carry the message forward? And by the way, it's a tired message. They constantly rail against tax cuts. Call me crazy, that just doesn't seem like a winning formula.
Well, I'm also wondering, to Dagan's point, the danger of not prioritizing this. Obviously, you need this for growth. It's a terrible message. The whole premise of a lot of this market right now is the excitement, if you want to call it animal spirits, about Trump coming back in the White House. That all ends if you don't get this done. And if you get to the end of the year and we have to rely on New York area Republican congressmen who would probably be fine, and their donors would be fine with letting this whole thing die, given their ability then to deduct all their high state and local taxes. This has got to be done now. I mean,
I don't think that's going to happen.
Number one priority,
I think
right?
there will be some accommodation on the SALT issue. My guess is there will be a doubling of it or a tripling of it or something like that can be accommodated within the reconciliation package. And where will that, who knows where the offsetting revenues will come from? They're going to have to figure it out.
So moving on to Iran, this is within 2 weeks, President Trump has put the hammer down on the world's #1 sponsor of terrorism, imposing sanctions on networks facilitating Iranian oil going to China. Iran made, at a bare minimum, $140 billion exporting oil during the Biden administration due to lax sanctions enforcement. This was willingly funding terrorism. The U.S. was, not us. Joe Biden and his cronies were funding terrorism by allowing that oil to be exported and sold.
It's really shocking. They basically just didn't enforce the sanctions that were in place. Trump drove down Iranian oil exports to 200,000 barrels a day. come in the Biden administration, they take their foot off the gas, and all of a sudden they're 2 million barrels a day or something like that. And Janet Yellen actually lied about this to the American people. When asked whether they had stopped enforcing the sanctions, she said, oh, no, it was a lie, because incredibly, they did that. And to your point, Dagan, they gave all that money that Hamas, Hezbollah, and all the other proxies in the Middle East needed to foment war against Israel from many different fronts. What were they thinking? I mean, really, what were they thinking?
They funded Russia invading Ukraine.
Yeah.
Biden and co. And they funded the Hamas attack on those innocent
and Hezbollah.
Jewish families.
Right.
That's what they did. Liz Peek, thank you so much. Great to see you.